Welcome, welcome, folks. We finally made it to Friday. The weekend is here. This is Hurricane Hub Live streaming on 13 News Now Plus, and we also post this on YouTube. So, folks, we love your questions. If you post questions in the chat on YouTube, we love to answer them. It gives us kind of a guide for our next shows going forward from here. But I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandajis, and tonight on HHL, we're talking about a quiet Atlantic basin. Yeah, there's not much to talk about, which is good news. There's nothing expected to develop over the next 7 days. However, in the eastern Pacific, getting a little more active. Now we've got two waves that are looking likely they'll get a name. Next name on the list there is Gil, and they've already had a pretty active season. 6 named storms already crossed off of the 2025 list. There may be a couple more in the short term here. But looking out past the next 7 days in the Atlantic basin, well, there are some things. We talked about this last couple of days. There are more favorable conditions likely going to be setting on up, and we may have some seeds, some African easterly waves that'll hit the main development region. And there is one in particular that models are getting quite bullish on, showing some development as it gets into the Caribbean, potentially near the Caribbean, by the first couple days of August. So long way out from now. By that point, we'll be into the second third of the season. After we get past July, we're already clearing a third of the way through the 2025 season, June 1st through November 30th. And typically June especially and July are pretty quiet in the basin. I think we average 1 to 2 named storms in the month of July in general. We've had one, Chantal, earlier on. And then by August, we see an uptick really early in the month and then a more significant uptick by mid-month. And that leads to the peak of the season as we get towards September the 10th. So July the 8th was the last advisory issued on Chantal. So it's been 17 days without any named storm. And we visited this chart several times already this last week, and we are nowhere near the longest gaps without a named storm in the basin. The number one spot in 1999 went 61 days, and then recently, 2022 went from just before the 4th of July all the way through August without any named storms, a stretch of 60 days there. So we are nowhere close to getting anywhere near the top 5 here. And I mean, it's going to get longer as we go through the next week, week and a half maybe, but not likely getting anywhere near that. Now that I say that, watch it go 2 months without anything out in the basin. And typically, as we look at the last 30 hurricane seasons, August the 15th is the average date that we see our 4th named storm. And this year, that name on the list is Dexter. Dexter replaces Dorian, that was retired after 2019. This is the 2019 list. So first time we'll be using Dexter out here after Dorian, of course, Cat 5 beast that caused a lot of destruction in the Bahamas. Was retired, but August the 15th, and getting a little bit more of a micro scale here, last 6 hurricane seasons, so more recent memory here, looking at the dates that we had the development of the 4th named storm. Wide range in those. It goes from June the 22nd all the way to August the 24th. And when you average all of these dates out, it's July the 26th. So tomorrow is the average over the last 6 years of seeing the 4th named storm in the basin. We will not see it. We will be well after that and likely maybe not get until the first week of August, if then at all. All right, out in the basin right now, very benign looking setup here on satellite imagery. There's nothing really that kind of grabs your attention. A few clusters of convection down in the south, pretty much detachments from the intertropical convergence zone there. Nothing really looking to tighten on up and become anything to worry about in at least the next 7 days. In that area we've been tracking in the northern Gulf, well, game over for that. 0% chance now as of the recent update from the National Hurricane Center. You can see just a disorganized cluster of tropical squalls now moving inland over southeast Texas here this upcoming weekend. Not the nicest weekend there. Basin overall, a lot of dust. Concentrations, though, kind of starting to drop. We're not seeing the high concentrations with the rust color and the browns that are coming off of Africa there, meaning higher dust concentrations there. But look what's going on here in Florida. Pretty dusty skies there, leading to some pretty sunsets and sunrises, but also some reduced air quality. And that make it all in the way into the southeast parts of the U.S. here, with some of those upper-level winds driving it a little bit farther to the north there. But in terms of anything to watch, it's going to be whatever comes off of the coast of Africa here in the next week and a half. So putting us into the first couple days of August, likely some pretty robust African easterly waves rolling off the coast here. And as they move into a more favorable environment, we talked yesterday about a more favorable phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation paired with a convectively coupled Kelvin wave, CCKW. Both of those leads to increased rising motion and overall decrease of wind shear. So we should see at least a more favorable environment. We'll see if the seeds take. They'll be moving into a fertile environment, no guarantee that it'll take hold and take root and develop. I want to show you the European model. We talked about this yesterday. This is a view of the model in relative vorticity. And mostly in positive vorticity. So what that's doing is kind of depicting cyclonic spin. This would indicate areas of low pressure beginning to develop. And what is indicated by that is you're looking for these kind of bullseyes of yellows and eventually oranges here. So I want to start things off currently and focus on what's going to be coming off the coast of Africa here as we get later into this weekend and early next week. See this lobe, and then it tracks across the Atlantic main development region, holds together, moves across the northern Greater Antilles, and then heads into the Bahamas by the first couple of days, first weekend of August. This has been several runs now of showing this, the European model here. Is it going to happen? No guarantee, but already a little bit of some consistency showing here from at least the last 3 to 4 runs, indicating there will be something to watch anywhere from the southeast coast of the U.S. down into the Caribbean, okay? We'll have to watch it during that time frame, but there's something there on the models at least. No areas of interest tagged yet in the Atlantic basin, but there may be later this weekend into early next week. Out in the eastern Pacific, though, we've got another tropical wave here that yesterday wasn't even tagged yet. And look at that, it's already up to a moderate chance of development odds here, at 40% chance within the next 7 days. Farther to the west, this one has been tagged as an invest. 97E, investigative area, 90 to 99. We're at 97 now, but it just rotates. And the E dictates that it is in the eastern Pacific. Moderate odds in both the short and long term, 50%, 60% respectively. This is looking a little bit better here on satellite imagery. And I did look at the modeling. It does keep it well south of the Hawaiian Islands. So right now, at least, doesn't look like it's going to be a threat for Hawaii. What comes behind it may track a little farther to the north, maybe something to talk about next week. But for now, looking like at least this most westerly wave won't be moving towards Hawaii. But it may get a name. That next name is Gil, and then we've got Henriette, if we see any of those waves farther to the east developing in the next week or so. Now, usually when we see the east packet a little bit more active, we see an increase in wind shear developing thanks to the exhaust from these storm systems in the east pack shooting off towards the east, creating that wind shear, and wind shear is detrimental to storm development. It tilts systems, blows the tops off the convection or the thunderstorm activity, and usually limits tropical development. But with these kind of developing way off to the west there, the effects on the east, on the Atlantic may be kind of muted a little bit. All right, let's get to yesterday's tropical trivia question. What season saw the most names retired? 1955, 1995, 2005, or more recently in 2020? Well, it was the historically active season of 2005, and it was the most active season up until 2020 came along. But we did have 5 storms retired that year. You can see most of which were major hurricanes. Dennis, Cat 4, 3 Category 5s, including the infamous Katrina, Rita, and then Wilma, a Category 5 too. Now you look at that and you say, Stan. Here's the track of Stan here. Category 1 storm. Why was that retired? Well, I looked it up. Category 1 storm made landfall in Mexico's Yucatan, then secondary landfall in the southern Bay of Campeche. Catastrophic flooding. Withstand. 1,600 people perished with the flooding there. So, of course, when it causes a loss of life of that magnitude, you see the storm name get retired. So that's why Stan added to the list there of 5 retirements in the 2005 season. All right, folks, next week you'll have Evan Stewart here doing Hurricane Hub Live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But in the meantime, you can scan the QR code to download the 13 News Now Hurricane Guide. It is information on supplies you should have on hand, emergency numbers you might need, and a whole lot more. A reminder, Hurricane Hub Live right through the rest of hurricane season, Monday through Friday, right back here on 13 News Now Plus at 8 p.m.